Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon, episode 5. This is the best episode of the season so far. Last week was probably the weakest, I would have to say. It was just kind of like a transitional episode. This episode is like, we're just going to give it all to you at once. This is an insane episode of Daryl Dixon. And I think this episode very much solidifies that this show is the top show so far of the spinoffs. And I liked Dead City. I did. But there's just something so well done about this show with Daryl Dixon. And I think it links a little bit better too, strangely enough, because it's, all the way in France. I think it's linking much better with the end of The Walking Dead's finale and just with where Daryl's journey is going and everything. It links much better with the end of The Walking Dead. His whole journey of trying to find Rick and his whole journey of traveling out, and now it picks up with him now doing this. It's working out so well, and this is such a phenomenal episode of this show, and I'm so happy that season 2 is well in development already, and we're going to get into that probably pretty soon next year. I mean, I know the next show is Rick and Michonne, and then I think it might be Daryl season 2 at this point, because Dead City I don't think has even started its second season filming. So I think Daryl Dixon, we might even see this show back before Dead City. Who knows? But let's get into this. We have a lot to get into from this episode. There's 3 different separate storylines that we're following in this episode. So, Daryl and Laurent, they are heading off to go where they need to go. The place that they have mapped out with this guy on the boat. They're traveling, and it starts out with this phenomenal looking shot. Just the visuals look so much better where they are now, filming in France and whatnot. It just looks better than it was always in the same place over and over again with the main show. We got a shot with Daryl just talking with the guy on the boat, and the guy on the boat asks him, how did you even get here to begin with? How the hell did you get to France when you're from America? And then we start to learn that journey. So it's been teased all season, how the hell Daryl even got to France to begin with. We're going to learn that in this episode. So we jump back. Daryl is in Maine. So he has made his way to Maine, and he's on his journey to, I believe, find Rick. I think that's what he was doing at the end of the main show. So he was on his journey to find Rick, and that is what he's still doing. So he's walking on a road with his bike. It's out of fuel. So he's just kind of walking around right now trying to figure out what to do. And there's this man that approaches him, and he's as kind of confrontational at first, but it ultimately just kind of works out to Daryl's benefit almost, where it's this guy's willing to help out, if you're able to help us with something too. And it's kind of like a trade deal there. So this guy brings him to this little outpost with a bunch of these men that are basically trying to round up walkers for something, and we don't know really why. And they say, if you get them fresher, the better, and we'll give you more fuel. And if they're rotten, they're not as good, maybe we won't give you as much. So it's kind of like a trade-off. These people want walkers for some reason, and if you find good, newer, fresher walkers, then you will get better payment with the fuel and whatever you need. And they're giving them fuel as they bring in walkers. So I think it's kind of an interesting setup that they have there, and it all links to how Daryl gets to France. We'll get to that. So in this flashback, we also do meet up with a few new kind of basic characters that are basically just for this episode. You got this older man here on the left who is a complete asshole, and then you got this kid on the right who is basically just trying to make his way in this new world. He's a much younger kid, and he's trying to get what he needs there. He's trying to help out and get the fuel he needs so he can get out of the area basically with his girlfriend. So they go out, they hunt for their walkers, but not really to hunt them, but to round them up and bring them in for whatever these people need the walkers for. Daryl is a master at it. He brings in a bunch of newer, fresher walkers. He brings in a lot, and he immediately starts to show off. So the kid goes to him. He tries to ask Daryl, maybe you can help me out with this. Maybe we can team up. And that's kind of a dynamic that they set up between those two. So we jump back to the present. Laurent and Daryl are out on their own with this guy on the boat. They kind of set up camp and just kind of set foot in this random abandoned place. We do got to Isabelle, so we get a lot of Isabelle's story, and it all links up at the end of the episode too. Isabelle's story with Quinn. So Quinn, he's kind of got her prisoner in a way. She's in this big castle mansion now, and she's in this fancy room, but it doesn't really look like she can leave. That's my assumption, at least, because she tries to go out the door, and there's people kind of guarding the area and stuff. So Quinn does enter the room, and he's trying to basically get her to love him again, and he's still got this whole connection and this appreciation and love for her. I don't think she really feels the same way about him anymore, and it's this whole weird, creepy, weird dynamic with him and Isabelle. I don't, it's obviously, it gets to where it does in the episode, but it's very weird at first. So as they're parked up with camp, with Daryl and Laurent and the boat guy over there, and they start to chit chat a little bit. They're cooking a fish and whatnot, and they start to mention the people that are in their lives. And Laurent finally asks Daryl, okay, who are the people in your life? All right, I don't know these people. I don't know your friends. You know my friends. Laurent's like, he's like, you know my friends. You know Isabelle. You know all these people that I know, but I don't know your friends. Who are some of the people that you know? And we get it's like set up perfectly just to mention a bunch of different names from The Walking Dead. So Daryl mentions like Judith. He mentions RJ, which is Rick's little kid with Michonne. He mentions Carol. He mentions Ezekiel. So a bunch of different name drops. It's literally set up perfectly just to have a bunch of name drops. And by the way, Carol, who we all know will be in season 2. She has been seen filming for season 2. We do get a little bit more Carol in this. She plays a part in this episode, which is on my mind. It's going to be on my mind all week and maybe even beyond this show. We'll get to that. So as we cut back to Isabelle, she's still stuck in this room, and before she's waiting for basically Quinn to come back and do whatever, and she's got this whole plan of maybe I can deal with Quinn, and she's looking around the room and she's looking for some sort of thing that could be a weapon, and she finds this corner of a mirror and she pulls it off as like a knife. So she's got like something to stab him with because she wants to attack him and maybe get out of there. I don't know. So that's what her plan is right now, and it does go a little sideways. We do see Daryl talking with the boat guy again, and then we come back to the flashback, and this kid that is there in the flashback who's with the Roundup people and everyone, he basically wants to team up with these older asshole guys who are there, and it's just a bunch of assholes. You always get these people in these shows, Walking Dead shows, that are always just assholes and are destined to die. And the kid wants to team up with them. He wants to work with them and get these walkers and bring them in. He thinks it'd be a good team. And the older guy there on the left, he doesn't give a damn. He doesn't even care about this kid. He has no desire to work with this kid. But then he's like, oh, well, if you go chop some wood over there, maybe we'll give you a chance on the next day, and we'll bring you out with us. So Daryl gives him some advice with chopping wood, and then Daryl did notice earlier that there is a radio in the station that they're in. So he walks off to go and maybe deal with the radio. So cutting back to Isabelle, Quinn does re-enter the room, and he's all dressed nicely, and they bring in this whole thing of like dinner. So he's gonna really talk with Isabelle and maybe try to get her back with him and all that type of stuff. And he's really trying hard, and part of me really thinks he does really care about Isabelle, but he's also very trying to be controlling about it and all that stuff. It's a really weird dynamic. It's kind of weird and creepy, but I do think this guy really does have a feeling for her. He really feels for her. He cares for her in some way, and I think it's interesting. And by the end of the episode, it's kind of revealed how he's not really like a super like villain of the series. We know the villain of the series, and that's Jeanette, but he is kind of like this mysterious guy who's kind of good in a way, but he's like misguided. As they're doing that, the lady from the bar, I don't know her name, I don't think I'll ever learn it. It's the guy's girlfriend from the nightclub from like a few episodes ago. It's the one who let Daryl and Laurent go. She enters the mansion, and she's like wondering what's going on with Quinn, what's going on with Isabelle. And she very quickly figures it out. Quinn and Isabelle, they're having their little date, and this is basically Quinn trying to convince Isabelle to get back with him and join him again, join the dark side. So that's what he's trying to do, and Isabelle is trying to lead it on because she has this whole weird, impulsive plan to kill Quinn. She's got this weapon in her hand behind her back, and he doesn't know, and she starts to play it on like, oh yeah, I'll get back with you, I'll love you again, and she's got it ready, and then he starts mentioning like biblical stuff, and it kind of sets her aside for the moment, and she kind of hesitates because she feels like this is very wrong and she shouldn't be doing this, but she really wants to deal with him and get him, she wants to kill him. She doesn't like this guy. So it's very conflicting for her, and it kind of leaves at this weird point of like she almost does it, but she doesn't. And as Quinn leaves the room, there's his other girlfriend right there just waiting and all pissed off. So she's not happy because I would just assume it's basically like her being betrayed by him because he's trying to get back with Isabelle already. Whatever, relationship drama. We cut back to Daryl. This is the part of the episode, besides the ending, which is really crazy too, that is just mind-blowing. And it's not mind-blowing. It's going to be on my mind for a while. And I think a lot of Walking Dead fans, because they're building something bigger here that we haven't really seen much of yet. It's like we're starting to interconnect these different stories in a bigger plan of what they're doing. So, Daryl gets a hold of Carol through the radio. So we actually get a conversation with Carol. So she is returning in this season, technically. Even if we don't see her next week, she is in the season. We got a voice audio of her, and she's talking with Daryl. And he mentions that he's in Maine. I'll be there soon. I just got to get fuel. And as they're talking, they wrap up their conversation. Carol's kind of staticky, so she's not really clear. And she says, "Hey, Daryl." He's like, "Yeah." They're about to hang up. It's all static. It's static, and you can't really understand Carol. And then she says, "Came back." So she's like misunderstood. You can't hear it. It's static. And then she says, "Came back." So it's an incomplete sentence of someone came back. So back home, somebody came back home. And Daryl's like, "Who came back? Who came back?" And then Carol cuts out because they lose connection, of course. So they lose connection. Daryl's wondering who came back. So somebody came back home. And it would be significant enough for Carol to mention it to Daryl. So it's like, okay, there's something else that we don't know, but they set up that someone came back home. Who came back home? There's a few people on my mind. Maybe it's Rick. We know the next show we have to watch for Walking Dead is Rick and Michonne. It's the ones who live. Maybe he makes it back home by the end of the show, because that's the next one we're seeing, and then Daryl will come back. Maybe Rick is back home already. My personal feeling is that it will be Morgan. That's my personal theory right now. Because if you've been watching Fear the Walking Dead, I hope you're not. It's really not good. But at the end of Morgan's story on Fear the Walking Dead, I unfortunately had to suffer through that show to get through to that point. He is, at the end, looking for Rick again. He left the group that he's with in Fear, and he's looking for Rick again. He went back home. He's back kind of near home again. I can very much see him making his way home. I very much can. And Carol would also care about seeing Morgan again, because Morgan and Carol had this weird relationship in season 8. So it also didn't really seem like Carol was super urgent about it. It wasn't like, oh my God, Daryl, Rick is back. She knows he's out there to find Rick. So I think she would tell him immediately, like, come back home. He's home. So I think it's Morgan. I could be wrong. It could be neither of them, though. Who knows? I don't know who would really come back. I think it's Morgan. We'll wait and see. But that was a very interesting thing that they set up there, and I'm very excited to see what they do with that. So as we cut out of the flashback, Daryl awakens to an attack by walkers at their camp. The boat guy dies. He gets impaled by a tree or a telephone pole or whatever. He dies, and he gives Daryl this watch that has a location or an image of the place that they're trying to get to. So he says, follow the river, and you'll go there, and you'll find your place. And the guy dies. So it's just Daryl and Laurent. And as the morning rises, they bury the guy, and they head off to the water. And Daryl notices the boat is gone. Their freaking boat is gone. And this is a moment that almost felt very out of character for Daryl. It just felt a little over the top, because he's always kind of had that soft side with, especially children in The Walking Dead with Judith and RJ. He's just kind of had that soft side even with Carl. And he kind of goes off on Laurent, because he realizes Laurent is the one who cut the boat off and let the boat float away. And he's super mad at Laurent. He starts to like grab him almost. And he's just like, you're saying you're useless. What are we supposed to do now? And it almost felt it felt super weird for Daryl to be so emotional in this type of way. We've seen Daryl in so many different emotions, but it just felt different to me. I don't know. But then Laurent mentions that, I don't want you to leave. If we make it to where we need to go, you'll leave. Because you're bringing me there, and then you're going to go home. He doesn't want Daryl to leave. He's growing a relationship with Daryl here. And I think this is very much meant to be a parallel between Laurent and Judith. Because Judith very much kind of said the same thing about Daryl, where Daryl was wondering where Michonne went. And Judith says, I don't want to bring it up. I don't want to tell you, because if I tell you, you'll leave. So immediately Daryl turns and he comforts Laurent. He says, it's okay. So immediately that struck Daryl, and he's like, all right, this kid, he's getting emotional, and he gets it, and they got to move on from this point. So they don't have a boat anymore. Cutting back to Isabelle, she's really struggling now. She was unable to kill Quinn like she maybe wanted to, and we actually do see her almost harm herself again. So they did mention that Quinn is the one who found her in the past, in a previous life, before the apocalypse, where she would, hurt herself, and we almost got to see that again. She almost considered it, because she's kind of just giving up at this point. She can't even deal with Quinn, and she's just kind of like stuck there. So it's like, okay, maybe I'll just give up again. And then the lady there that's kind of serving her and giving her food and whatnot, she walks in with some eggs, and there's like this little note on the food plate, and I think it's a message from that other nun lady that was with them. I still haven't learned her name either, but that's my guess. But it's some random message from a friend of hers that they sent, and now she's able to read it. It was kind of a weird scene, but it got Isabelle to kind of shape up and get ready to once again try and make her way around this situation. So she's not going to give up yet, and she's going to go along with what's going on right now. So as DARYL and Laurent are traveling now on foot, they actually run across and they hear some people with vehicles, and they run across Jeanette's people. So they're looking for DARYL and Laurent. As that situation unfolds, we jump back to the flashback again, and it's the next day after that night when they were preparing to go find more walkers. The kid went out with the older men. He went out there to go and maybe be a good team together, and they show the old man coming back with different walkers again, as they were told to get fresher walkers if they can. If you see at the end of the line, the kid that was with them is now dead. He died. Somehow he died. DARYL immediately realizes that the old man in this group of men killed the kid, so they would have a fresh new walker, and then they would get more fuel and whatever they needed, and they would have a good one, a good nice fresh walker that these people wanted. So they killed the kid, and DARYL immediately loses his mind. He punches the guy, and the rules were there's no violence between anybody. You can't do this. So DARYL and this older man are apprehended by this group, and they're basically taken prisoner. They're taken hostage or whatever, and they're taken to wherever DARYL's going to go. We'll get to that. But they're taken as prisoner now, basically, and they're sent off because they're no longer allowed to help with the group. We cut back to the present. DARYL decided to go off on his own and tell Laurent to go off and leave without me, and I will stay back and I will distract these guys. I will stay back and keep them off your trail. And they almost kill DARYL, but Laurent does actually give himself up. Kind of expected because of just how connected he is getting to DARYL. So he gives himself up. So DARYL and Laurent have been captured, and they're not really going on the journey anymore. I don't know if they'll ever make it to their place that they need to get to, but they're not getting there right now. We cut back to Isabelle, and she's kind of got herself dressed up a little bit more. She takes Quinn's gift of this necklace, and she's basically playing along now. Okay, I'll play along. I'll see where this whole thing goes. I'll see where I can play this thing, and maybe I can get myself out of this situation. So she's all dressed up. Her and Quinn go off to meet with Jeanette. So this is where everything basically collides, at least in the present day story. So as we're entering the area where Jeanette is, we actually do see this line of people, all the folk in the area. She's trying to basically get everyone on her side and unite this new France. And you actually see a lady there with a few of the others from that group. It kind of seems like something mysterious and suspicious. I don't know what their plan is yet, but there's some sort of plan there, I think, that they're going to do. And I think that's going to play into how everyone is saved in the end. So the lady is there, the other nun lady's there, and there's some sort of plan, I think. They enter the area. Quinn and Isabelle, they meet up with Jeanette. And immediately Jeanette reveals to Quinn that, yeah, here's DARYL. Here's DARYL. We found him, and we realized you're actually helping DARYL and Laurent because you care for Isabelle, and Isabelle wanted that. So here's our friendly nightclub lady, Quinn's old girlfriend now, I would say. I remember last episode saying, oh, maybe she'll, she's a good person, and she's kind of doing good letting DARYL and Laurent go. I don't know anymore. She kind of just gave DARYL and Laurent up right away to get back at Quinn. So she reveals that Quinn was helping Isabelle with Daryl and Laurent. So Quinn has been betrayed by his old girlfriend now, the lady, and Jeanette throws him in the jail cell with Daryl. So Quinn is now thrown in I don't know if he's going to really help them now. I don't know if he's going to help Daryl, but he's thrown in the prison cell with Daryl now. So him and Daryl are sharing a cell together. Kind of awkward. As that is going on, though, Isabelle is still kind of undercover still, and she gets reunited with Laurent. And Jeanette basically reveals that she wants Laurent to be this face to unite all these different folk, all these different people, and basically be the voice, because everyone thinks that this kid is special, and she wants everyone to believe in this kid and unite everybody because she wants to be like this leader of this new France and this new world. So that's kind of my assumption there, and she wants to use Laurent for that. That's the plan right now, and that's what she's trying to make Laurent do. So we cut back to Daryl in the cell. Quinn is over there by the window just kind of berating Daryl because he's an asshole. And we get this in-between shot now of this flashback with Daryl, the final bits of the flashback, and the final scenes of the episode in the present. And it's very interesting. So Daryl is taken aboard a ship. Yes, we all know where this is all going now. Daryl is being brought upon a ship, and he's going to make it to France. So he's being brought upon a ship after being taken prisoner and, captive by these people after the group when he caused violence in that group. So he's taken prisoner, and you get a quick shot of the ship too, and it reveals that these people on the ship, we don't know where they're technically going yet. We all do know they're going to France, but right at the moment, Daryl has no idea where he is. And these prisoners, they're not really even caring about the prisoners. They're just feeding them the walkers. So they take a random guy out, they feed him the walkers. So he realizes that if he doesn't figure out something quick, he's going to be fed to some walkers in a cage. At the same time, Daryl is let out of his cage in the present, and he's being led somewhere. And the guy says, "Oh, it's lunchtime. So let's go. I take him out of the cage, leave Quinn there, and he's being led to wherever." And then we cut to a big speech with Jeanette. She's basically speaking to everybody in the area. She's got everyone gathered, and she wants to basically bring a new world order under her, and she wants to be the new leader. And that's kind of how it's going with her. So she's not the good guy. She's the villain of this show. And that's been made very clear now at this point. So in the flashback, Daryl and the older asshole guy who he's locked up with now, it seems like they came up with a plan, and Daryl's on the ground coughing up blood. I think they probably made that happen, maybe punched him in the face or something. And the old guy's like, "Oh my God, look at, he's dying, he's sick, he's gonna die and become a walker in here. Get him out of here." So they kick Daryl out. They throw him in front of the thing of walkers, and they're about to throw him in. And of course, Daryl goes all Daryl badass and starts killing these guys. He gets up, starts punching them, hitting them with their knives, killing them. And this is basically, I think, why Jeanette and that doctor or whatever are now mad at Daryl. And this is literally the whole scenario now of what happened. So Daryl basically managed to escape and punch through a bunch of men and get off the boat. Kind of what we expected, but now they're showing it to us. So him and that older guy, I call him the asshole because he killed the kid, but he's kind of working with him right now to get off the boat. And as they're doing so, we do cut back between the flashback and that. Daryl is led to the big arena area where what's going on? Like, he's being placed in the middle of the room, and we don't know why. And there is Jeanette. She's up on top of the stairs there giving her speech. And we're wondering what's going to go on. Something's going to happen here. Something big is going to happen. Back in the flashback, this is a very important shot. You see the old guy just looking at that thing, trying to figure out the lifeboat that they're trying to get off of. Look in the bottom corner here in this little thing. There's a walker in there strapped up to the wall, and we all know what these French people, like what they're trying to do with these walkers. They're experimenting on them. We saw that a few episodes ago. There's another experimented walker down there, and we don't know what they're doing to them, but this is so incredibly unique. The walker breaks free. It is incredibly strong and incredibly fast, and it looks different. Its eyes are all black. It's got like this stuff running through it, and it's been experimented on. And this is really freaky because I don't think it's a variant walker, but it's not normal anymore. It's just like a man-made variant walker in some sense, and it goes insane on that old guy. He kills him. He rips him apart like a freaking Hulk. He like starts ripping into him, just throwing pieces everywhere. And it's a psycho walker. It's super strong. It's super fast. And I think this is different than that one we saw at the end of World Beyond, I think. This is like something different. This is like a man-made experiment on this walker, and it made it psycho and strong and fast. It is crazy. I think this is so fascinating. I love that they're doing all these different things with the walkers now. The walkers for the longest time were these bumbling, walking things around, just kind of easy to kill things, and they became very unimportant to the main series. And once again, walkers are becoming threats again, and I love it. I love it. So as Daryl is brought out into this big arena in the present, they roll out another walker, and it looks like a normal walker. And then there's this guy up on the stairs that shoots down this dart into the walker's neck, and it injects this serum. And it's like injecting like a super serum of Captain America almost. And it's really, really freaky. We got one final shot of Daryl jumping off the boat, trying to escape that crazy walker. And I would assume that's how Daryl ends up with the boat that dropped, and he ends up in France. So I would assume the boat, when he jumped off of it, they were already near France, and he washed up ashore, and that's how the story goes. So they inject this serum into this walker in the present story, and immediately this walker starts to like go insane, like start to freak out in its shackles. And you cut to this really freaky shot of its eyes like turning black. It's changing. This walker is like literally changing. It's been given like this super serum walker stuff, and now it's like a psycho strong fast walker who's about to attack Daryl. So they have it ready. They release its cuffs and whatnot, and they send it towards Daryl, and Daryl is given an axe to fight it. And that's how the episode ends. Wow. What a crazy, crazy episode. So much happened in this one. And if you compare it to last week, man, this is like a 180 from last week. Last week was fine, but this is so different, so fast-paced, and they got so much told to us. Probably because the finale is next week now. Maybe they're just getting it all in now. I don't know. But God, I love this episode. I liked episode 2. It was my favorite until this one. This is my favorite episode of the season so far. So much was told. The walker stuff is fantastic. Like, I love that walkers are threatening again. And the Carol stuff. Having Carol come back. Cool to see her new dialogue with her and everything. And mentioning that someone has come back home. Who has come back home? I have my thoughts on it. I think it's Morgan. I could be wrong. It could be Rick, maybe. Who knows? But I think it's Morgan. We'll see, though. It will be revealed at some point. Maybe not next episode, but they did leave that little hint for us, and I'm really interested to see what that will be. But what a great episode of DARYL DIXON, and the quality of the show, the acting in this show, all the new characters matter so much more than they did in like Dead City. The new characters in this show matter, and it's good. It's really, really good. And I can't wait. I'm sad that it's the finale next week. I want so much more, but I think 6 episodes is good. I think it's a good number. And this is kind of the range of episodes that The Walking Dead should be sticking with. They can get a very concise, told story in that amount of time, and it's much less fillery than it was when The Walking Dead had 16 episodes per season stuff. This is very concise. It's high quality, higher quality than it was before, and you could just tell the writing and the acting and just everything is really good with this show. I'm impressed by it. Not going to say it's going to save the franchise. I think they need a lot more like good shows like this. All the Walking Dead spinoffs need to continue to be this good, I think, to build up good word of mouth. But it's a good step direction for this franchise, and I hope these future spinoffs can continue to be this good, especially the Rick one. But what a great episode. Incredible. Just freaking incredible.